Imagine that it's back day. You're doing chest supported rows, you're having a great time, you get to the end of a chest supported row set, and you can't breathe. You feel like you're suffocating, you get lightheaded. Why does that happen? And what's the solution to it? Well, first of all, it's a really simple fix, and we're gonna go over it in just a second here. But the first thing to know is that not all chest supports are created equal, and whether or not this solution works for you in particular, and then also based on the machine that you have, is really subject to vary. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of go over the principle here, and I'm gonna kind of lay out a couple of different scenarios within which you can try to do this. So here's a chest supported row. This is a T-bar row. Obviously this person is floating, but the chest supported pad is kind of like somewhere here, right? Usually a little bit lower. And what the goal of this exercise is basically just imagine that this person has Slenderman arms, because my drawing proportionately is clearly not correct. He clearly needs to be lower. Let's just ignore that, right? And this is basically just, you know, you pull in this direction, the weight pivots up this way, and then you lower back the weight down in that direction. And when people do this exercise, some people feel really great. Some people feel like dog shit. And so why might that be? Well, in my estimation, it has to do with where the chest support is, and specifically where on the rib cage the chest support is. So think about it this way. When you breathe, right? Just as you're listening to this, watching this video, put your hands on your lower ribs. Take a breath in, blow a breath out. What you'll feel is those ribs go when you inhale, and then go when you exhale. And if you do the same thing, put your hands on your chest, you can feel a little bit of rise in your chest, right? But just a fraction as much of a rise in your chest as compared to your lower ribs. Now, why might that be? Well, because the lower ribs, they are the ones that are more flexible. They move inward and outward, and they're in essence what allow us to create space for more air to come in. The upper ribs are much more rigid, and they need to be rigid because there's more important stuff up here, your heart and your lungs. And so if these ribs up here are more rigid, then what that essentially means is that if we place the higher portions of the chest and really the sternum on this chest support, we won't basically be suffocating and dying by the time we finish our last rep of the set. Or if you're someone who's really strong, right from the get-go, right from the first rep, you're basically just feeling like crap. Okay, so here's how most people will place themselves. Imagine like this is the rib cage. They'll place themselves so that the lower portions of their ribs are getting smushed by the pad. And so in essence, what we need to be able to do is find a way to shift the person this way, or to adjust the torso such that this higher portion of the rib cage is placed on the pad, right? So if this is the rib cage here, we want to basically turn the trunk, turn the body this way. You could do this by maybe adjusting your foot position, adjusting your body, such that this portion, basically right where my mic is, like right up here, this is the portion that you want to lean into the chest pad. So whether that's you like intentionally rounding sort of into it, right? The position that the precise direction and location that you are pulling on the implement is probably less important than you being able to breathe, right? And so if you find it in an instance like this difficult to actually adjust your torso, because let's say in another chest supported variation that's more like an upright version, it's very easy just to kick your legs back and to lean a little bit more forward so that this higher portion of your chest can be into the pad. But on this variation, it's a little bit more difficult. So what's an alternative solution? Again, this is not the best, most clear visual, I understand, but hopefully it's clear enough so that you all can kind of get an understanding of what I'm trying to say here. Instead of having to manipulate your torso this way or this way, right, again, to get that upper portion of the chest on the pad, what you can do is maybe like take a couple of towels from home, like a bath towel, and roll it up or fold it in such a way where it basically just creates a little bulk. And even if you keep the exact same position on the chest supported pad, what you can do is basically put that towel higher up. And what that will do in essence is it will make the top portion of the pad thicker. In other words, you will then, because there's a more of a thickness up here, you'll then give at least a little bit more space to your lower ribs. So if you know that you have chest supported rows on a given day of training, just bring a towel, put a towel in your bag, or if your gym has a towel, just take one from your gym and put it on there so that there's more of a distance and so that you can primarily contact up here as compared to down there. So again, As I mentioned earlier, this may vary from machine to machine and from individual anatomy to individual anatomy. You may have a tough time adjusting on something like this, in which case, if you just can't make a chest supported row work, there's a million other row variations that you can do. And specifically in terms of like a chest supported row, you could just, let's say, pull up a bench to a cable and do it that way. If that's too inconvenient, you can do it like a single arm row, right? If this isn't going to work for you no matter what you try, just understand that there are many other options that you can use, and you don't have to tie yourself to one piece of equipment, especially if you're in a gym that has a lot of chest supported rows. Don't tie yourself to this machine just because someone said that it was better for whatever reason.